3, 2, 1, blast off. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, your weekly visit with two talking heads talking with you about the services, strategies, and success tips you need to make it big in managed services. My name is Rich Freeman. I'm the Chief Content Officer and Channel Analyst at Channel Master, the organization responsible for this podcast. I'm joined this week, as I am every week, by your other co-host, Eric Simpson, our Chief Strategist at Channel Master. Eric, how goes it?
It's going great, Rich. It's going great. How are you feeling today? You still kind of rolling strong from getting recharged a little while ago from a vacay. I feel the energy in your voice. It's awesome to have you back. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, and you're absolutely right. That's partly the effect of last week's vacation. The other thing is, as we've discussed on the show multiple times, I'm based in Seattle. We don't get as much sunshine here in Seattle as you do in Southern California, but the weather is perfect now. It's been perfect since I've gotten home, and I think everyone who lives in Seattle gets a little extra lift in their step in weather like this, just because we don't enjoy it all that often.
You know, Rich, speaking of Seattle, I've heard people say that, because it's always like, when it's overcast, it's not really raining, but it's like a heavy mist. And I've heard people call it dry rain. Is that a thing, or would somebody pull on my leg?
Well, we don't actually use that term here, or at least nobody I know does. But I mean, that phenomenon is exactly right. Everybody thinks it rains constantly here. It is overcast constantly here, but we don't get nearly as much rain as people think. If you look at the annual rainfall here, it's not like wildly higher than a lot of other places in the country. But the temperatures tend to be lower, which can be a good thing this time of year, and we don't see the sun as often as we'd like. So when we do, it's like a treat.
Nice.
Well, let's dive into our story of the week, Eric. Speaking of treats, this could be a treat for the top line, at least, of a lot of folks in our audience. And it concerns some reporting from our good friend Jay McBain at Canalys, concerning a corner of the IT market that hasn't been a source of good news for a while. And I'm talking about the PC market. Now, as we all know, back in 2020, everybody suddenly locked up at home. You've got the work from home phenomenon, and there was a massive wave of PC and particularly laptop buying in the business world. That persisted through 2020, well into 2021, and then PC purchasing kind of dropped off a cliff. And quarter after quarter after quarter, we've watched hardware manufacturers and distributors report that their endpoint numbers are very, very poor. But it looks like that is, I mean, we've already seen some evidence that that's beginning to turn around, Eric, but I'm looking at something that Jay posted on LinkedIn just a few days ago, and he is predicting what he is calling a supercycle of PC device sales coming in the next 6 to 8 quarters. And he points to 3 phenomena that are going to cause this to happen. One, of course, is it's been 3-4 years since that COVID-inspired purchasing wave I was talking about. So we're at a point in time where those devices are entering their refresh cycle. It's going to be time to replace those. Issue number 2, Windows 10 goes EOL in October 2025. And that's going to inspire some additional purchasing as well. Last, but far from least, really the biggest cause for this supercycle, though, is the arrival this year of AI PCs. Canalys is predicting that AI PCs will be 2/3 of the PC market by 2028. And they are also predicting a 47% compound annual growth rate in AI PC sales between now and then. Now, as we know, there are a lot of MSPs out there who either don't sell PCs to their customers, or they do, but they wish they didn't have to because the margins aren't tremendous, and it's not it can be a source of overhead in terms of maintaining these devices without being a major source of revenue or profit. But I'll be curious to get your take, Eric. I really sort of continue to look at hardware generally, whether that's PCs or network hardware or IoT hardware, something I'm writing about this week for Channelholic, my blog. That's money on the table. And it surprises me sometimes how many MSPs aren't kind of pulling that money off of the table. And, for those who are, there are some good things to look forward to. You probably haven't made a lot of money on PCs and laptops, especially in the last few years. And that's looking like it's going to turn around.
Yeah, Rich, I think that this, we talk about AI a lot on the show, obviously, because there's a lot to talk about, but having an impact on hardware sales, I never saw that coming, with these AI enabled or empowered devices, laptops, PCs, and things like that. This could be, that next wave of revenue generation that MSPs have not seen since COVID, right? As you mentioned, during COVID, boy, oh boy, we were out of stock, right? There was no supply chain because all the hardware had been sold to support hybrid workforce. Now it's a few years later, right? In a typical kind of refresh cycle that you think about for PCs and laptops, I think, that's been increasing over the last several years. Hardware is just better now, and operating systems just work better with the hardware. Before we used to think, okay, 3-year refresh cycle, back in my MSP days, right? 3-year refresh cycle for, laptops and PCs, 2 if we could get it, and then maybe 4 or 5 for servers and things like that. So we're right around there, right? 2020, 2024, by the time, MSPs begin seizing the opportunity and really talking about not just upgrading the operating system from Windows 10 to 11, let's say, let's just take advantage now, future-proof you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, and get you into some new hardware you won't have to worry about for many years, new operating system, and AI capable. So I think there's a lot of value in that discussion, Rich. And I'd be surprised, what the numbers look like compared to traditional hardware sales. What I mean by that is there's probably lots of inventory of not AI, un-AI enabled, not AI enabled hardware. And what's going to happen with that? Are the vendors going to kind of try to reduce the price dramatically to get rid of that so they can, fill the channel with the AI stuff? Or how's that going to work out? Because that could be, in the strategy that says, oh, we want to get you into the AI laptops and PCs and Windows 11 and future-proof you and all that. If the MSPs go, I could probably make a little bit more margin by selling them, the stuff that I'm getting on a really good discount because we're trying to, get the stuff out of our supply chain, it's going to have to be a decision that the MSPs make. I vote for future-proofing. I vote for, giving clients something new and different and unique. Adding more value is always good from an influence and sales perspective. And, knock on wood, stuff will probably work better.
I suspect it'll be sort of a mixed use case there. It's going to depend a lot on who the end user is. So if you are selling to a knowledge worker, an executive, probably a salesperson, somebody who really wants and would benefit from having one key access to Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, yeah. I think the AI PC is going to be hard to resist for those folks. But there are going to be a lot of folks out there who really don't need that functionality in a device, just based on what they do for a living. And then you're right, there could be an opportunity to collect a little extra margin, maybe just drive some higher PC sales because distributors and manufacturers will be looking to dump some accumulated. I don't know if that'll be true, but it certainly would make sense. The other thing I want to quickly point out is just that you were talking about, what a surprise it is from a certain perspective that there is a hardware opportunity in AI. And this was actually the subject of last Friday's Channelholic post as we were recording this, which was about the broader infrastructure opportunity around AI. In fact, IDC went out a few months ago and asked, and granted, this was like enterprise IT departments, but they asked people, what are your spending plans around AI software, AI security, an AI infrastructure, and infrastructure came out on top on that list. That was the number one spending priority because people understand I'm going to need new and better servers. I'm going to need some of these AI PCs. I'm going to need more storage and faster storage. So there is actually, it goes beyond the AI PC. There is an entire infrastructure opportunity around AI that is worth exploring.
Yeah.
Well, now
yeah, sorry. I was going to say, we weren't expecting it last year, but boy, oh boy, here it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, if your entry point to that opportunity is to equip some of the end users you support with AI PCs, they're going to, assuming they're laptops, those people are going to be able to work wherever and whenever they want, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be easy to support. This has something to do with your tip of the week, Eric.
Yes, Rich, and probably a long time coming, right? I mean, and I hear this from MSPs all the time. It's just as businesses during the pandemic were challenged in supporting their remote staff, as MSPs have evolved to support more hybrid workforces since that time, like in an accelerated pace like we've never seen before. MSPs also had the same challenge as the clients that they serve. They had remote staff all of a sudden and remote workforces. And, we all pulled together, our MSPs, clients to get through that. But during that process, Rich, we all kind of discovered, holy cow, there's some benefits, and, what we thought wouldn't work from a hybrid workforce, business model, some of it might work, right? So we saw business owners and MSPs think about, well, do we really need all this office space? Can we do with smaller office space? Can we reduce some of our overhead costs by doing a hybrid kind of a model, or all remote model? I know some MSPs, Rich, that definitely want their staff in the office, just like business owners do, just like everybody else, SMB, mid, enterprise, we want them in the office. Some say, well, look, we've reduced some of our space and things like that. We'll have them come in once or twice a week and we can kind of rotate around. And when we have big meetings, we can do that. And then others are, hybrid or complete remote works for us. So in the latter two scenarios where you have hybrid or completely remote workforce, you still have the need to manage the staff when they're not in the office. I think it's easier, Rich, to maintain the morale and the performance and, of course, the collaboration and the coaching and the leadership stuff that goes on the times when staff are all together at a location. But when we're completely remote, how do we maintain that same level of morale, energy, sense of appreciation, and of course, performance management, and energizing the team, right, and feeling like we're still a team. So what do we do, Rich? So a couple of things to think about. These communication and collaboration tools that we use on the daily, you and I, and many others. Microsoft Teams, Zoom. I'm on Google Meets. I'm on just every platform. Clients and prospects sometimes, have their own preference. They've gotten a lot better. There's very little lag. Audio's good. Got a decent camera. I mean, even the cameras that are coming with the new hardware are better than it was 2 years ago as well. So we have that kind of opportunity to feel like we're collaborating together. But the moment that we're off a call, how do we maintain that level of, get after it, stay motivated, have a process by which everyone understands what they're measured on, what their numbers need to be. Like everyone in the organization has numbers, not just technicians or sales folks, right? We have, operational KPIs that we want to keep and, manage and things like that. We have folks that manage back office and, supplier relationships, vendor relationships. So we have the one communication tool that we've addressed. Another communication tool that I really like, that I use almost always, Rich, is an AI note taker. That's really, really effective in helping me not only record the video and the audio, it delivers transcripts. I can slice and dice the transcript with AI. Thank you, AI, right? To look at different, portions of the transcript. I can search for different things in the transcript. And then I can tag different points in the conversation with, tags that I create, background, follow up, next steps, to do, that kind of thing. So I can just tag during the video, and then I can scrub to it. So these collaboration and communication tools are really, really advanced or mature now. So that's checkbox number one. The platforms that we use to measure performance, as MSPs are using PSA solutions. They're using, any number of third-party vendor applications. In the best case, they're integrated together, and the reporting is where the focus needs to be here, Rich, is optimizing the reporting, making sure that we're able to measure performance and goals and outcomes, and even employee satisfaction along with client satisfaction as well. And this is how we keep everybody aligned around what their number is, and how they can stay effective in prioritizing what needs to be done. That requires, Rich, a clear understanding of what their roles are, what their performance is going to be measured on, and more communication, more outreach from a coaching, leadership, collaboration perspective. Not all about business, but really getting to know our team, right? Some of the best leaders that we've worked with, Rich, are folks that really are people persons and really understand that we've got to reach out and communicate. And sometimes, Rich, at the engineer that I am, in a previous lifetime, I felt like, oh, well, everybody's like me. They don't need a lot of love. They don't need a lot of touching. They just need a task list. Well, wrong in every sense, right? But especially wrong when we have completely remote workforces. We have to over communicate. We have to sit and learn more about our staff and our teams, and just appreciate them and understand what they're missing and what they need. We have to listen more. And then these are those regular check-ins. So we talked about communication tools. We talked about performance monitoring and platforms and reporting and things like that. And then these regular check-ins. And then last one, Rich, bonus tip is you've got to get everybody together once in a while. And sometimes we're so busy, with our head, in the monitors, as it were, that we don't really think about it. And, Rich, you brought up in a conversation with me a few days ago, we were talking about work-life balance, right? So it can't all be about work for the teams. I mean, find an event, a trade show, a conference, something where some of the team is going to be there anyway, or you just decide, like, we're going there and we're going to take the team. Or if that doesn't work, especially around holidays and special events and things like that, price your services accordingly so you're making great profit and you can afford to have an event just for the team. I think that goes so far, especially in a completely remote work environment.
Yeah, I kind of taking those in reverse order, maybe. I mean, we both know MSPs who insist on everybody being in the office. We both know MSPs who are 100% remote. They don't have an office at all anymore. And what I hear nearly 100% of the time from the entirely remote MSPs is that they will do team activities, team events, morale building events on some kind of regular cycle. It's usually after business hours. It's in the evening. It might be on the weekend. We go play softball. We have a picnic. We go out to a restaurant or something like that. But people do need to, physically recognize one another, be in the same room, have some kind of relationship that goes beyond the tools that you were talking about. What was item number two? There was something I wanted to say about item number two, and now I forgot.
We talked about communication tools, regular check-ins, performance monitoring.
Oh yeah, reporting. So as you were talking about, collecting reporting data, it occurred to me, what some employers, not necessarily in the managed services world, but just in the world at large, what a lot of employers have been doing is deploying these sort of spyware systems to kind of watch what people are doing remotely. Wouldn't it be a better approach, particularly if you're an MSP, to set very clearly defined measurements of success for your employees, collect that data through the PSA or whatever other tool it is, and do regular reporting so that you can see if people are meeting expectations or not, as opposed to making folks uncomfortable in a tight labor market by watching if they're using some mouse jiggler tool or something like that. And then last, maybe least, but I did kind of want to bring it up because we were talking about AI PCs before, and you were talking about the communication tools. They've gotten better. The one thing about the communication tools that is still an issue is where are my eyes? Where am I looking when I'm using Zoom, for example? So right now, I'm looking into the camera because my choices with Zoom are either I can look into the camera, which means I'm looking at the audience, or I can look at you, in which case I'm looking away from the audience. I've opted to look at the audience, basically. But one of the cool things about AI PCs, and I haven't seen this in the wild yet, but I cannot wait to experience this. Apparently, the cameras on AI PCs are so sophisticated that I can look at you, and the PC will compensate the image such that it appears as if I'm looking into the camera. And it just eliminates this so common issue that everybody deals with. So like I said, I haven't actually seen this, but as good as the communication tools have become and as good as they are now, they're going to get even better as that AI PC adoption wave kicks in.
Yeah. Again, AI to the rescue, right, Rich? And just a little bit of follow up on a couple of points that you made. So, going out to dinner, things like that, that works really well when we're geographically near each other, right? But when these completely remote, staff are just, that's just not possible on a very regular basis. What we've seen, Rich, are, virtual little hangouts, like the company will send out, goodie bags or lunch, or we're doing, wine tasting or whiskey tasting. And I've even seen people hire like a virtual mixologist, and everybody gets all the ingredients, right? We did that a couple times with MSP Happy Hour. Was doing that for a while with Connor, and we'd show everybody how to do the drinks and all that. Then we toast, and we just it's all about just not work stuff. Just take the load off, and then have really cool shareable games that we would do. We would do like quizzes, and then spin the wheel for prizes. We did all that when we were doing this series of MSP Happy Hour kind of live events. And these are things that I picked up from other partners, from other vendors, and we would collaborate on this stuff because we were all trying to figure out how to keep everybody engaged, right, during the lockdown, for instance. And the other point you made was about, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought now.
Is it the reporting thing again? Where are we?
Oh yes, the mouse jiggling and all that. How creepy, right? How cringy is that? But what I was going to say is, and you were I think you were, I'm going to take the ball and get it past get it across the goal line. So this is an opportunity for us, and it goes back into more regular check-ins. So we're using this performance data to have more coaching and guidance. So instead of, typically we see a yearly performance review, right? Well, by the time the year's up, that employee who has every intention of giving, the company their all and trying to do their best job, and then finds out, well, you failed over here because this or that. And you're like, well, if you'd have just let me know, then I would have adjusted, right? So having this performance data actually can help and have more regular check-ins. And these call them reviews, but more kind of coaching guidance. You can do them more often, and they're shorter, right? Some clients that I work with, Rich, I can't do, performance reviews every quarter. I recommend it, right? But what they're missing is what they say is, well, it just takes me so many hours to prepare to do all the reviews every year. But hey, if you have very clear, goals for everybody and you're measuring performance and you're not impeding their ability to hit those numbers, like sometimes we're our own worst enemy, right? Like, right, Rich? Like you have them in too many meetings. Well, how can they hit their numbers? Whether that's, tickets or sales or whatever, if you're in the way. So this is a way for you to have shorter conversations. Everybody is more aligned more consistently. And I think it delivers a much better, outcome for both, team, business owner. I mean, it's more connected, and we're actually working more closely together to achieve these outcomes rather than, okay, I'm going to see the principal now, or I'm bringing my report card home to my mom and dad. That's not, that kind of thing. So this is
Well, on the topic of working together, we are going to take a break, folks. When Eric and I come back on the other side, we're going to be joined by not one, but two very exciting guests from Cisco. We've got Elisabeth De Dobbeleer, who runs their partner program at Cisco. We've got Ken Seitz, who works specifically with MSP and as a service partners. Eric, I give it about a 70% chance I mispronounced one or both of those names. We'll find out after the break, but we're very excited to be joined by both those folks. We're going to talk about some opportunities out there in the marketplace that Cisco is familiar with, in security and networking in particular, that folks in our audience might not be sufficiently thinking about. And then we're going to talk a little bit about a topic that we've discussed on the show before, which is the evolution of partner programs and what MSPs can do to get maximum value from partner programs. So stick around, folks. All of that is coming right up. All right, and welcome to part 2 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast, our Spotlight Interviews segment, where we are very pleased to be joined by two people at very senior roles within a company everyone, I'm guessing, in the audience is very familiar with and is probably doing business with. That would be Cisco. So our guests this week are Elisabeth De Dobbeleer. See if I got that right this time. She is the vice president in charge of the Cisco Partner Program. We're also joined by Ken Seitz. He is the senior director specifically for managing everything as a service sales and partners at Cisco. Elisabeth, Ken, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, and nice to see you, Rich and Eric.
Thanks for having us.
Likewise. Thanks for joining.
Elisabeth, for folks who are new to you, just tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do at Cisco.
Well, thanks a lot. So I am leading the Cisco Partner Program for Cisco globally. As you may hear from my accent, I am based in Belgium, but I have a global role. So when we say partner program, we really mean the entire end-to-end value proposition of Cisco as a vendor to its ecosystem, of which, of course, managed services and the MSP partners is a big part.
Ken, your turn. Tell folks a little bit about yourself and your role at Cisco.
Yes, thanks, Rich. So part of the global partner organization focused on partner managed and as a service, as you mentioned. For the route to market and our great provider partners, we try to build offers and programs and commercial constructs that help them be successful in the market with Cisco. And then the other part of that is making sure that we introduce our portfolio, traditionally net 30 hardware sales, into a subscription and service construct, which provider partners and other partner types can use as well.
Well, I'm going to kick things off with a fairly open-ended question. I mean, obviously, Cisco is a huge player in networking and in security. These are our markets, very familiar and important to our audience here on the show. There are other markets that you guys play in, and I'm just curious to get a perspective from each of you. Are there opportunities that maybe MSPs, in your experience in security, networking, or beyond, aren't sufficiently focused on, aren't taking full advantage of? And I'll give you a first shot at that, Elisabeth.
Well, thanks. So I think we have been engaging with managed services players for as long as Cisco exists. But I think we really doubled down on the opportunity 5 to 7 years ago. And so now we have a dedicated approach to really maximize the opportunity. And I think given the evolving technology evolution in Cisco, the whole link and merging between security and networking is more relevant than ever. So I think Ken has a specific offer development team on that, so he can tell you a bit more about that.
Yeah, please do.
Thanks. I think, there's never enough networking and security, but I think that, as Elisabeth said, that's probably where we're best positioned with our provider partners today and where most know us from. But certainly in the collaboration space, I think with the WebEx suite, messaging, meetings, collaboration, and calling there, contact center as well. Like, that's an area that we see a resurgence of, I think, in a post-COVID time, for hybrid work, and the prolific use of our video devices. And observability there as well, both coming at it from a networking out and from an assurance standpoint, assuring the applications, and then coming at it more from the application side and looking at it from a pure play, full stack observability view there. Those are other areas that round out networking and security well for us.
So Elisabeth and Ken, MSPs are, traditionally still have their feet on kind of two sides of service. We have kind of projects, network infrastructure projects, we have software migration, we have cloud migration projects, but then we also love recurring revenue services. Mm-hmm. So what are the underleveraged recurring revenue service opportunities that you feel MSPs might take better advantage of, instead of seeing things as kind of a point product, point solution? How do we create managed fill in the blank services with Cisco?
Ken, you want to go first?
Yeah. So I think that you touched upon a couple points there, Eric, which certainly resonate with me. I mean, I think that transition for, kind of what we call the managed services 1.0 motion, where everything is somewhat bespoke or dare I say custom, to more of a catalog based approach. We try to work with our provider partners to guide them through that sort of continuum, making sure that they are doing kind of the packaging where they can to sell at velocity and scale and repeatability, which helps with the service delivery and the customer experience over the long tail as well. In terms of the specific sort of packages there, I think we try to take a very tailored approach with our provider partners, looking at what are their core strengths, where they have relevant and adjacent market opportunities that they could build into, what are the key verticals that they may already have as in their customer base, and how do we tailor something to capture more wallet share and peer groups from that segment. But I think the key is, getting the sales motion and the economic model, the commercials, aligned to the way that that target customer wants to buy. Enterprise versus small business will be fairly different, and the tighter the bundling, more so for small business than large enterprise, where we expect we have to have more flexibility.
I was at the Cisco Partner Summit last year, and you're reminding me there was a lot of attention paid from the main stage to those packages, and there was a slide that kind of showed that there is a wide range of managed service offerings from Cisco. How can a partner program like yours help MSPs understand, discover, go to market with packages like that? What is the role of a partner program in helping the partners take advantage of these sales opportunities and get benefit from them?
Yeah, I think it has a whole, there's an end-to-end approach to this. I think I would start with, and I think that's something we've discovered through the years, the biggest opportunity is really making sure that our sellers are actively promoting and enabling and endorsing the MSP, which was a bit of a cultural change, let's say, not just culture, but also process and even a comp related change, because traditionally they were very tuned into and used to working with their preferred reseller. And so we did a lot of work around promoting and incentivizing that engagement with the MSP. And I think that's really important, which is something we can't forget, meaning just addressing the MSP and making them welcome in our program, as in having specific MSPs focused specializations, which is our powered brand specialization, let's say, or making sure there are adequate incentives. It's just not good enough. We really have to make sure that final mile of the seller engagement is there too.
Rich, I think what you're speaking of there is our library of partner managed ready offers, which is how we would present that a little bit more externally to that our provider partners and the prospective partner base there as well. So just extending beyond just the channel program itself, that's kind of the culmination of what we call it our 3P strategy of platform, preference, and performance. Platform meaning we want to have the right capabilities within the Cisco products and aggregation points of platforms that they can extend with ecosystems and easily integrate. That's a key element of it. And then the preference, we want to be the providers and the MSP industry's go-to technology provider. We want to make sure that they look to us, and not just for great technology, but also the know-how and the thought leadership to help them scale and extend their practices and be more profitable, have a way to show their differentiation. And then on the performance pillar of that, that's really where the Cisco Channel Partner Program, and specifically the provider role, shines through, and we make sure that there's an amazing value exchange, that we have financial and non-financial benefits that we bring to our providers, and where they invest into a Cisco-based managed service practice that we give back to them and help them continue with our mutual success.
Ken, you just listed out some of the some of the benefits of the program that Cisco has built to support these MSPs. So I'm going to speak now as a former MSP, right?
Please.
Knowing how busy MSPs are, and just their day-to-day operational firefighting. We're trying to tamp out fires, but we're also trying to be much more strategic to our clients. And sometimes there's not a lot of time or room
For sure.
left, not being prioritized properly, to work with strategic vendor partners like Cisco. Like we were a very high level partner with Cisco when I had my MSP, and we had to learn how to engage, right? So what are the biggest keys to connecting with your MSP partners and getting them to a point where they want to grow the relationship, leading to more profitable growth? Sometimes there's that, you've got to, build that trust and confidence. So what are some of the keys, do you think, to building that collaboration with MSPs specifically, rather than just typical resellers? Because there's a difference, right?
Totally. So Eric, I think we try to make sure that there's something available for MSPs wherever they're at that journey with Cisco. For example, we have our MSP Secure Center, where providers can come and consume Cisco security software with simply filling out a form and a credit card, and we'll build them for them on a recurring basis that way. And that's a little taste of the Cisco portfolio. Obviously, if you have a broader need, you need our physical networking and security devices, then we have great distribution partners that the MSPs can work through there, that will take them through a journey. We give those distribution partners the enablement they need to be able to engage and speak the MSP's language. We're constantly trying to improve their capabilities and help them through incentives to invest in that, and capabilities and sharing our knowledge. And then we have more high touch direct engagement that we use with some of the bigger provider partners to help them mature even further from even a global presence. There's always room for all of us to improve. So I think start small. We have that available. We have journey maps to wherever you're at along that. We have self-service content, and then where we can find the matching of people and coverage, then we'll engage in a high touch fashion there as well.
I don't know if you have anything you want to chime in there before we move on, Elisabeth.
Well, yeah, I was going to say exactly. It's all addressing the different partner types or partner business models along customer segments also, because we see different engagements in function of, let's say, the smaller customers and then the high touch. So we try to tailor to all of these different business models.
Eric framed his last question there around accelerating profitable growth. And one of the things I love about having folks like you on the show is you talk to a lot of partners, different kinds, different sizes. You have all sorts of different metrics that you're looking at for which partners are succeeding and how and why. And so basically, there are sort of insights and best practices that we can get from you that are hard to get from other places. And so I'll just give you each a chance at this a little bit. Any thoughts at all about, again, if we're kind of focusing in on that managed service provider audience, any thoughts about some of the things, the best practices, the smart moves that you're seeing your partners do that really do help them accelerate profitable growth?
Yeah, I can start with a broader. I think generally our MSP partners are doing better in terms of driving profitable business than our resale partners. So I think there's been a time where we actively promoted and enabled that motion as well. And then also, of course, and again, no surprise, I would guess that partners investing in more recurring business, software, services, and then, of course, life cycle, right? So ensuring that stickiness of the customer along the journey of the customer, that always is better in terms of driving profitable growth. And we're trying to cater to that in our different programs also, by making it easier for MSPs to engage with software and services and lifecycle.
So in terms of, sticking with the MSP focus here, as knowing that the MSPs are very unique, because of that trust and confidence and that authority that they have and influence with their existing clients, how can Cisco help MSP partners not just go deep into their existing customer relationships, but go wide? So what are can you share kind of maybe 3 tips with an MSP that may be, a new partner with Cisco? Are there some motions that a new MSP does that are the low-hanging fruit opportunities? And then as they grow, I know, Ken, you mentioned, before we went live that, there's some different types of services and solutions. What do you see in terms of the motion that an MSP takes to grow wider with their existing client relationships? Ken and Elisabeth.
So I think looking for those adjacent technology areas for within existing customer base is the easiest. Those are existing relationships that you have. Just understanding what are their needs and what are you being asked for. Eric, I grew up on the operator side of things and have only worked in an MSP space the entirety of my career. So I always smile when you say the focus there, because that's the conversation I want to have naturally. But I think for me, on as an MSP product manager, you would get that feedback for what customers are asking you for, and you're having to say, no, I'm sorry, we don't have that today, and hopefully keeping a register of those requests. So as you can kind of get to where's the grouping or the mass of those requests coming from, my hope is that the Cisco portfolio can help you address that and branch into further an existing, bigger wallet share within the existing customer base. I think beyond that, it's looking for where you kind of naturally gravitated towards over the course of selling. In my experience, you might not start off with a verticalized sort of sales approach, but it tends to be more horizontal. Wherever you can get relevance and wherever you can get an audience that's built off of relationships of your sellers with the buyers across the table, so to speak. But then understanding where have you gotten a concerted mass there of 1 or 2 particular verticals, and trying to go a little bit deeper and trying to bring in perhaps some outside focus and help educating your sales force on what are the care abouts of those verticals, and then tailoring some of the packages. It could just be in value proposition or commercial packaging for those verticals to how to reach them. And then I guess the third, right, is segmentation, and maybe trying to expand out just that incremental step, whether you've been in small business and are trying to move up market. Again, I think the verticalization patch may be a way to get there, but it's take those incremental steps and just slightly higher and not go from a 25-person average customer shop to the 1,000 is probably too big. But how do you take 25 to 50 to 100, those sort of incremental steps, and certainly get a sense of care abouts and what it takes to serve different customer segments?
Yeah. Is that the kind of thing that you folks help your partners with in the Cisco Partner Program? It's part of the education, training, and so on, how to kind of design, think about, execute that sort of, just as a for example, plan to scale?
Okay.
It really is. I mean, I think in our world, Rich, I mean, there's there's 5 key roles that we think about within our partner managed focus on a daily basis. So there's product management. They tend to be kind of a central kind of quarterbacking function within the partner organization. Service delivery, and what does it take to sitting in the operations center to deliver levels 1 through 3 on a 24/7 basis. Sales, marketing, and customer success round that out, and making sure that the careabouts for each of those roles is well understood. And we take that through an engagement model we call our provider success framework. But that starts with engagement, figuring out where that opportunity is, Eric, that you were just talking about. Like, where do you want to grow into? Is it same store sales? Is it different segmentation? Is it new verticals? Once we figure out like what is the definition of success, then from there we'll start a formal service creation engagement with them, caring for each of those 5 roles, with the key objective there to just getting the provider to market with a new viable service as quickly as possible and for as least expense. So if we can bring templates like service descriptions or a view into market pricing, or just a social media campaign that could be readily tailored with unique value proposition, we're trying to bring something for each of those roles up to the point of launching that service that's been tested and beta tested and validated through surveys. And so we know that once it launches, the probability of sales success is super high. And then we have lots on the other side of that too, but I'll pause for a moment there.
So in terms of today's post-pandemic buyers, the question that I have for you, Ken and Elisabeth, is, what are you seeing in terms of that? We know that, the pandemic and the lockdown and all that has forced, business customers to think differently and to support their infrastructures differently. They're more open to doing co-managed IT when, in fact, before that, MSPs were seen as a threat. I knew there was something I liked about you, Ken, MSP focus, right? That's right. So speaking from your perspective, kind of understanding the MSP methodology or the business model, Elisabeth, you as well, are you seeing a shift in what your MSP partners are now presenting as solutions and services to their end customers that may be different than before the pandemic?
Well, I think there's a part here where indeed it just accelerated. And we are now saying inside Cisco that the MSP motion is like an embedded motion. It's as important and fast growing compared to resale, which is a big thing to say because, of course, we've always been very resale anchored or resale centric, let's say. So it's much more of an embedded motion right now, which is also why the way we are approaching it is embedded within the partner program, embedded within our seller engagement, embedded in everything we do. So that absolutely. And I think it will only continue like that because of what customers are requesting in terms of IT management, right? I think even what happened last week is a bit of a symptom of that, in a funny way. I
agree.
Yeah, I think that the overall pace of change coming out of the pandemic has continued to move to such that it's very difficult in my experience for corporate IT to be able to keep up with the skilling demand to learn the new technologies and make sure that they have the knowledge of the relevant technologies that are going to lead to the business transformation that the companies are looking for. It feels to me like that pace of transformation, even outside of the technology range, increased, and the expectations on that. I don't know whether it's because we all had more time on our hands for 2 years, but post adjusting to it, it's moved faster, and that certainly hasn't slowed. Even as people come back together in the office environment and in hybrid environments, but the pace of security threats has certainly increased, and that's probably the most obvious area where we see that the need for augmented skill sets, because there's just not enough. And then we can't get through a show here without mentioning our 2 favorite letters of AI. But if you're gonna leverage that in the near term, I think it's probably going to take some outside expertise, not only to design, build, assess what are the possibilities, but to help you maintain that on an ongoing basis.
And talk about an opportunity for security and networking, right? Both of those are very important elements of AI. In addition to co-hosting this podcast, Elisabeth, I read a blog about the SMB channel. This is actually the first time or first chance I've had to speak with you since you stepped into this role you're in now, which you haven't been in all that long, as I understand it, but long enough that now is probably the time where you're beginning to refine, shape, revise the partner program a little bit. So, I mean, bring me up to speed on where things are with the partner program, maybe some key milestones in the last year, and just what you're kind of looking at going forward.
No, absolutely. So even though I'm new in this role, I've been working in and with the channel for many years at Cisco. And actually the last year I was part of a focused transformation effort. And one of the big things we were working on was simplifying and aligning our partner incentives. So we basically replaced 3 flagship incentives by a single integrated one. And I think we will continue on this journey of making sure we continue to simplify and make it easier for our partners to do business with us. So that's a big deal. But I think also everything we discussed in this show, right? Like making sure we are designing in for MSP, but also for other business models, whether it's non-transacting, so, consulting engagements, advisors, developers, ISV, co-selling, etc. We have obviously over the year invested in that, but it's not properly designed in. So we are looking at doing that as well. And I think the final big piece, which was a little bit of a theme in this discussion too, is the fast changing technology environment and making sure that we are doubling down on enabling and equipping our partners with technical capabilities. So that's a big topic for us as well.
Actually, Ken, could you maybe speak a little bit more to that, the realigned incentives or the unified incentives there, just so I and folks in the audience understand that a little bit better?
Yeah, actually, Elisabeth, you're much closer to that piece. If you
Yeah, I can. So basically we have 3 main incentives. One is, we're proud of it, right? More than 22 years old. Imagine that, which was all about landing hardware mostly. And then we had a services incentive as well, which was all about attaching and renewing services. And then finally, we had a lifecycle incentive. So we have basically announced last year that we're integrating and replacing those 3 by a single one, which is compensating along the life cycle from landing to adopting to renewing, and for all partner types. And the big deal here is also we are using the same metrics and the same data and the same visibility at the transaction and customer level for our sellers as for our partners. So back to the point I made before, I think there's a whole push at Cisco to making sure that we have a true joint go-to-market between our partner sales force and our own sales force, because our own sales force is also going through a huge transformation. And so I think that's really important for us, so that as we are working together on deals with customers, that alignment between our partners and our sellers is super tight.
One last question I've got to ask. Earlier on in the show, Eric was providing his tip of the week, and he was providing some advice for the MSPs in our audience on managing remote employees, people who are working exclusively or much of the time from home. And how do you stay in touch with them? How do you make them feel connected with the company and with each other? And one of the things that came up is he talked a little bit about the role that video conferencing tools can play in that. And, WebEx came up earlier on in the conversation, and it just sort of popped into my head that there are probably use cases for WebEx in particular like that are maybe not top of mind for MSPs. I mean, it's one thing to offer WebEx to your clients. It's another to offer it in the context of very specific business pains, business needs, business opportunities that could potentially help you address. Are there, uses for WebEx out there that maybe your partners really should be looking at a little bit more closely?
Completely. I think that I would say it's second to none in the industry in terms of core capabilities of the overall WebEx platform. The AI that's integrated within the platform to remove background noises and babies crying and people talking and things of that nature is fantastic. It just as someone who spends most of my waking hours on it, I can say it is a great experience, and that's complemented, I think, by the messaging platform that can easily elevate sort of textual communications to video-based calls, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many. At the same time, you're doing your standard schedule-based calls. So between dial tone and IM and rich multimodal media, I think it's a fantastic platform. And we also appreciate that it's made better by great kind of endpoint devices that go on there. If you want to use a laptop webcam and a monitor, that's great. If you want to use a dedicated device for super high fidelity audio and video, we have that as well. And that also complements well with other platforms out there like Google Meet and Microsoft Teams there as well, to make those platforms even better experiences. But there's certainly a great managed opportunity around that. I will say that our WebEx endpoint devices have the Thousand Eyes endpoints in there that allow for that sort of end-to-end sort of assessment of the quality of calls. I think that's one of our key differentiators. Is so when you talk about the remote user base, how's that experience for them going on a daily basis? Are they having choppy calls with blurred audio or blurred video and choppy audio, or is it coming through in the quality that's equivalent to, maybe being in the office next door?
Yeah, we don't have any experience with having to turn off our cameras and any of that just to overcome, choppy, laggy video at all. Never heard of that, Ken.
Elisabeth, Ken, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. We really appreciate it. We'd love to have you back on at some point down the road. Elisabeth, for folks in the audience who would like to follow up, learn more about you, maybe get in touch, where should they go?
Well, both Ken and I are available at our email addresses. We can share it with you. And we have on the incentive itself, we have actually a link for folks to go to if they want to know more. So we can share that with you after the show, so you can share it with the folks listening to us.
Fantastic. We will put that in the show notes, folks, for you to find. And Ken, any further advice for the audience in terms of getting in touch with you?
You can certainly find me on LinkedIn. Is probably the easiest. Cisco.com/go partner managed is an easy way to do that. We'll include that hopefully in the show notes as well. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm happy to engage. If you are not familiar with Cisco's capabilities around partner managed services, I highly encourage you to look. I think we have a second to none portfolio, and not only that, but the capabilities to earn that preference from you on a day-to-day basis.
All right, fantastic. Thank you both again for joining us on the show. Folks, Eric and I are going to take a quick break right now. When we come back on the other side, we will chat a little bit about the conversation we just had with Elisabeth and Ken from Cisco. Have a little fun, wrap up the show. Stick around. We will be right back. All right, welcome back to part 3 of this episode of the MSP Chat Podcast. Once again, we thank our guests from Cisco. There's a lot actually for us to chew over there, Eric, but the thing I really want to underscore, because this was something that really came home to me when I attended that Cisco Partner event last year, is they're not kidding around when they talk about being serious about partnering with MSPs. And we got a lot of that in this conversation here, and I got a lot of it at that event as well. And I mean, just straight on the main stage, multiple speakers talking about it, right up to and including Chuck Robbins, the CEO. You just really kind of felt it. And the reason why I think came up in this conversation here, which is just that the most profitable, fastest growing partners, the ones that Cisco is particularly interested in, are the ones with recurring revenue. Project revenue is great. They, I'm sure, are making most of their money that way, but they have learned, as many in the industry have, just how appealing it is to have that recurring revenue stream come in, and MSPs are how you get that.
You're right, Rich. I mean, not for nothing, but MSPs are becoming more and more the ideal partner prospect for technology vendors, and it's simply because they own the trust and confidence of their clients. They are business, almost business partners. It's not like a technology reseller vendor or just another one of those vendors. Jay McBain talks about the 7 crucial relationships that every business owner keeps. We had him on the podcast and he talked about it. And the MSP is becoming one of those 7, and it's because of that ownership and that integration with business needs and business outcomes that sometimes, Rich, transcend the technology, right? I've talked on the show before about what the maturity level looks like for an IT provider maturing into a managed service provider and being even more strategic. Initially, this happened to me in my MSP. Started off selling technology outcomes and technology solutions, and then over time, through that understanding and maturing myself and increasing the operational maturity level of our business, began selling from technology outcomes to maybe business departmental outcomes, like taking care of business units within an organization, the accounting, the HR, the sales team, and then ultimately business outcomes. So there's a lot of growth in that life, in that client relationship when you're looking at it that way, because now you're delivering solutions that impact the overall growth of that organization, keeping it secure, accessible, data protection, connectivity, collaboration. We just heard, with Elisabeth and Ken, and this is what MSPs are known for, and why more and more businesses are engaging with them. And I asked the question, Rich, during the interview about the changing needs of businesses since the pandemic, and we know from data and analysis and surveys that more and more MSPs were able to break through that co-managed IT barrier, that existed before the pandemic, and we're not seen so much as threats, but as a welcome savior to help these internal IT departments manage these distributed, hybrid, or remote workforces now, and the security and all of that. So yeah, it's I have no question in my mind why they're so attractive, to technology vendors and to business owners today.
And just to reinforce a piece of what you said right there, just remember, folks, businesses can buy their hardware, their software anywhere. Solutions and business outcomes are sticky. So that is really what you want to be talking about and offering to your clients. All right. Well, thank you again to Cisco. Folks, that leaves us with time for just one last thing. It comes to us from Niagara Falls, New York, where not too long ago, a woman walked into an animal shelter with 6 parakeets that she just couldn't take care of any longer. And she asked the folks in the shelter, take care of these birds, find good homes for them, which the shelter, of course, agreed to do. One of those parrots is named Pepper. And Pepper is a talking parrot. And by golly, I cannot repeat on this podcast the first words to come out of Pepper's mouth. I'll give you a slightly abbreviated version. The first thing they heard Pepper say was actually a question. Do you want me to kick your bleep? And this was not the only thing along those lines, apparently, Pepper knew how to say. Pepper is a bit of a potty-mouthed parrot. Now, they went out, this probably not a fit for every home, but they figured there's got to be a home where Pepper is a fit. And they went online and kind of told folks what Pepper is all about. And by golly, Eric, they got 400 applications from people who wanted to adopt Pepper. And they did, in fact, choose a woman in Olean, New York, and her fiance as Pepper's new home, in part because, believe it or not, this couple already had an African gray parrot, another very clever talking parrot, who was potty-mouthed, and they figure, perfect, they can talk to each other, this is going to work out. And so all's well that ends well. Pepper the potty-mouthed parrot has found a new home with loving human companions and another potty-mouthed bird to speak with.
Rich, stay tuned for the TikTok channel. I can't wait to watch these 2 parrots going at it. It's got to be hilarious.
I hadn't even thought of it, but we've got to go look it up because I sure hope the video was out there. Well, folks, we are out of time this week. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're going to be back again another week with another episode for you. Until then, I will just remind you, this is both an audio and a video podcast, which means if you are listening to the audio version of the show, but you're curious to check us out on video, go to YouTube, look up MSP Chat. You'll find us there if you're watching us on YouTube, but you sometimes listen to audio podcasts too. Go to Spotify, you name it. Wherever it is you get your audio podcast, you're going to find us there as well. However you find us, please subscribe, rate, review. We appreciate it. It's going to help other people like yourself find and enjoy the show. This show is produced by the great Russ Johns. He's part of the team with us here at Channel Master. He would be happy to make a podcast like this for you and your company. And there are all sorts of wonderful things we would love to talk about doing with you at Channel Master. You can learn more about us at www.channelmaster.com. Channel Master has a sister organization called MSP Master, where Eric works directly with MSPs to help them grow and optimize their business. You can learn more about that company at www.mspmaster.com. So once again, thank you for joining us on the show. We'll see you in a week. Until then, please remember, you can't spell channel without MSP.